Razabani for IFL TV, proudly sponsored by Everlast. Delighted to have on Zoom today Black Box Global very own Mr. Dean Whyte. Dean, firstly, how are things? How's the family?
Everyone's good. Everything's good. Thanks for asking yourself.
Everyone's well. It's Monday. Sun's out a bit, so can't complain.
Yeah, yesterday was a good day. Yesterday, sun was really shining yesterday in the UK.
Absolutely. Dean, there's only one place and only one place to start Saturday night. I'm sure you had your eyes glued to the TV. Not sure if you stayed up all night. Deontay Wilder, Tyson Fury, it was a trilogy. It was a fight that we've been waiting for, and it didn't disappoint. I just wanted you to break down exactly what you saw at the beginning. Let's go through the kind of first round. Deontay Wilder came in slightly heavier than he's been the heaviest ever in his career in this particular fight. Tyson Fury came in a little bit heavier, didn't look in the greatest shape, but we know Tyson Fury doesn't have to be looking great to perform. What did you kind of make of the opening round tactics where Deontay Wilder was kind of just jabbing from a distance and keeping Fury at bay?
First, I want to say, listen, what a hell of a fight. You know, those guys, we've got to take their hat off to those guys. Whatever you think of them, if you're a fan or you're not a fan, but if you're a fan of boxing, you was entertained, and those guys put it all on the line. There was many questions about Deontay Wilder's heart, his desire, his boxing ability, if he quit in the last fight. And a lot of those things were answered as far as I was concerned. He showed his desire, his purpose. Even in the last round, just to go straight onto that, when the ref just waved it off, he was still trying to get up. So he's a true gladiator, and he's earned more of my respect. Even though, and I always say I'm a fan of boxing, I respect him. And, you know, we talk about the opponents he's faced, but this trilogy here, what he had, this is a modern day classic. This is more of my time and your time and our time of boxing. When you talk about the Ali and Frazers, when you talk about the Riddick Bowe, Holyfield, when you talk about Ali and Norton and many other, you know, any heavyweight trilogies that are out there. I'm not the historian. Spencer is, big up my uncle Spence, but I do my homework, more time on fights. But listen to me, these guys, that was a crazy fight. I'm sorry. I don't want to hear no one talk no shit about this fight, because as much as Deontay Wilder looked very tired, you know, he looked done from 4 or 5 rounds, but I think his heart, his desire, and his will to win was what spurred him on. He ate some big shots and just continued. It looked like the writing was on the wall many times in this fight, but he dug deep, and that shows his true grit and his heart and passion for the sport and what he wanted to achieve in there. Obviously, he was great, but, you know, Tyson Fury is greater, and that's what we got to put it down to. He is a very unique character that, well, I think we talked about earlier off camera, him, you know, his body, how he looks and stuff like that. He comes in, none of that matters. The guy is, you know, the skill for this guy of our era. He's a big unit, and he's a problem. He's a problem. When I mean he's a problem, he is a serious problem. I've said it before, and I said it to him at ringside one time at Warren Fight. You know, I'm a fan of boxing. I'm a fan of him because, you know, for someone who's 6'9", 6'10", to be able to box and do this stuff he does is just mind-shattering, you know what I mean? So going back to what you were saying in round one, for me, the only thing I would say starting off with, I like the fact that Deontay Wilder was jabbing to the body. I'm a big fan of jabbing to the body. I just felt like he used a bit too much energy up in the first round. He was, I think he had the right game plan, but because of the muscle mass he put on, I feel like, you know, that was always going to play a part later down the stretch. He looked in phenomenal shape. You know, normally he does, but he looked like a real action man figure and looked like he, you know, he meant for business. I think what we looked at, when I looked at the data, it said basically that in that first minute, he threw more shots than he did in the second and the first fight in terms of, you know, shots output. And we could see that, but I felt like he put a bit too much energy into how he was. He was a bit too jiggery and up and down. He weren't settled with it. But I like the fact that he set out his stall and he showed Tyson Fury, listen, this is a different fight. And this, you know, you're in for a real battle. And in the end, as much as both men say they don't respect each other, they have to respect each other. You know, obviously Tyson Fury called him a sore loser. I hear that because he didn't want to shake hands. but both men sharing the ring so much times, they only can respect each other. That's the only thing they can do is respect. From even a distance, you got to respect that man and say, shit, that son of a bitch is tough as hell. I don't want to give him these good ratings, but I know it inside of me. Both guys know inside of them that they've gone through many things, and both guys will be forever ingrained in each other in history. You know, Tyson Fury, he took some punishment. I don't even know how he hit some of them shots and continue to get back up and come back and do the stuff he did. But round one was a good round. The tempo was nice. You know, I liked the idea, and I knew Malik Scott was going to, you know, in terms of a technical aspect, was going to add something. And I said this all along, and we can see how it was. We saw I felt like he was a lot better, and there was a little bit more purpose. I felt like more time it's a mental battle with yourself that you got to go through in the gym to get past, you know what I mean? Certain stuff. Obviously, we complained about the sacking of the coaches and the things he said, but I think he ripped some of his demons and ripped some of those things right now in this fight. So yeah, now listen, for fans and anyone watching, man, you only can take your hat off to these guys, man. That was a great round in round one.
Dean, you talk about Deontay Wilder's grit, determination, and desire. Let's go to round three. Fury knocks down Wilder, and honestly, my instant reaction was Wilder will be lucky to survive round four the way he ended round three. But he comes back in round four and knocks Fury down twice. Like it was just
not once, but twice. Yeah, it was one of those roller coasters. Had people on the edges of their seats, and you know, it was just that's what I'm saying. It was mind blowing. It was what's the word? It was yin and yang. You know. Up and down, you know, you didn't know which. It was only a punch away from being over every time one of these guys detonated, and they literally. I remember both of them threw a right and literally just missed each other. One of the times I was like, "Yo, damn, these motherfuckers really getting busy." You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, look, I don't know what to say, man. I just when you think Fury, what he's done, coming from being 315 pounds, being off layoff for whatever it was he was away for all those years, managing to lose weight, deal with mental health, any drug issues or whatever he had, come back and to do what he's done. For me, you can only take your hat off to someone like that. And I'm not a hater, irrespective of anything. I love the sport of boxing. I go to grassroots, I go to the biggest, I go to the smallest, I go to the furthest, but I only can respect what it is. I just try to be as honest as I can, especially about boxers. But this guy is a hell of a fighter, a special guy. And I think Deontay Wilder played his part. And in boxing, you need a dancing partner. And I think these two brought out the best in each other because we saw a real gritty fight. We saw both guys where they had to question themselves. I think the difference in this fight was both corners kind of was giving each other a little, you know, the right act, a little bit rocketing up the backside. But for me, I think it was round 7, I think, which was a crazy round as well. I know the corner was giving it to both fighters, and I think they literally both went in there and just kind of, you know, just tried to put it all on the line, you know.
Dean, it seemed like from round 6, 7 onwards, Tyson Fury rather started to take over and winning the rounds with his jab, etc. And it looked like Deontay Wilder didn't have much leg. His legs were quite unstable. His punching power wasn't there. You could tell by the way he was punching. Do you feel like if we didn't have the events in the second fight where the towel was thrown in, if that didn't happen, do you think the corner or would have thrown in a towel?
Yeah, that's one of the ones we'll have to think about. But I'm sure they're smart enough. They saw what happened the last time someone threw the towel in. That guy was in the Bahamas watching this fight somewhere, or maybe in the Bronx. I don't know where. They didn't want to be out of a job come Monday morning. They weren't so silly to even think of that. But this is what I was saying earlier in the fight, earlier in the interview. I was saying, you know, from around 5 rounds on, like the previous 5 rounds, the writing was on the wall. We saw he was on unsteady legs, and he looked like he was only a punch away. Obviously, he didn't recover. Tyson Fury used his body weight, he used his size. What I liked as well with Deontay Wilder, when he leaned on him, he kind of went down and took the knee so he didn't take the weight because his legs was already on shaking legs, you know what I mean? So that was somewhat of a smart move to try and do. You got this big old lummox that is lying on top of you and trying to drain your energy. And you see he was kind of grasping, his mouth was open. We saw the way he was punching. There was kind of slapping, cuffing shots. The power seemed to have wandered. And then there were times where he looked like he was virtually gone, and then he would catch Tyson, and then there was a resurgence of energy, and there was a rally again. So this is the sport you gotta love. You know, when you think the man's dead and gone, and then they can revive and come back from something like that. I mean, I think it did play a part, all of that, in terms of the second fight with the towel being thrown in. I got a feeling he was getting touched up a bit, but you know, like he said, he's a warrior. I want to go out on my shield, and in the end, he kind of did. You know, obviously being stopped. I mean, but he was still trying to fight to get back up. You know what I mean? So I don't know.
Were you disappointed? You touched on this earlier, but were you disappointed that after both fighters had 3 unbelievable fights, I think 34 or 32 rounds they shared in total in the ring. After the first 2 fights, they both hugged each other, shook each other's hands. And in the third one, in the ending, when it was clear and conclusive that Tyson Fury has beaten Deontay Wilder, were you disappointed that when Tyson went up to Deontay just didn't show any love and humbleness and appreciation back? And that obviously annoyed Tyson Fury afterwards as well.
Yeah, no, I get it. I do totally get it. But what I would say is, in the heat of the emotion, there's a lot of adrenaline, there's a lot of emotion. He just got knocked out. He put it all on the line. He took some rotted licks in there. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like, you know, he feels like this is probably more than just a sport. And at that moment there, you know, maybe he'll look back and say to himself, you know what, maybe I should have been more sportsmanlike. But I can understand the standpoint. Obviously, maybe he felt that he's let himself down, he's let his people down. There must have been so much emotions running through his mind and stuff. Obviously, he's probably maybe been somewhat concussed. I don't know. Obviously, sportsmanlike, we do understand that, but these guys are gladiators and warriors, and sometimes that part gets the better of those guys. You know what I mean? So it is a shame. Sometimes it goes that way. Sometimes it doesn't. Is, you know, obviously sometimes pleasantries can be pleasantries if it's possible. But we shouldn't really cast judgments on it, because, you know, those guys go in there and ultimately put their life on the line to, you know, give us entertainment. You know, down the line, maybe he'll come to his senses and say, you know what, big up to you. You're the better man. You know, I'm a great champion. I still believe in myself, but you're a greater champ. Credit to you. And they might do that later on down the line, and we've got to respect that also. So in terms of the judging, you can't just judge just yet. But I think there was on more friendlier terms on the first fight, and then it just went downhill from there. And then, you know, it kind of just gone tits up, as they say. You get me? It's gone out the window, all the friendship.
Dean, let's look forward. The WBC has stated that the winner of Wilder Fury, which is Fury, has 30 days to negotiate an undisputed fight with Alexander Usyk. We know that is very, very unlikely, because Eddie Hearn has confirmed over the weekend that Anthony Joshua has triggered his rematch clause. So Joshua will fight Usyk for the unified belts. But obviously, if Fury can't make the Usyk fight, Fury then has to fight and is mandated to fight the winner of Dillian Whyte and Otto Wallin. From a Dylan perspective, that must be good news to hear that finally Dylan gets an opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. But look, it's one of them ones where you can't look past Otto Wallin. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, Otto Wallin is, you know, as he showed in the Tyson Fury fight, he is a great fighter. Southpaw, tricky. He had a decent record as an amateur. And we know he's rough and rugged. It's not going to be an easy fight. A lot of people are saying, you know, it's going to be a 1-2 round job, you know. But I think Dillian's got, you know, a nice tall order on his hands. You know, anytime you're fighting a southpaw, it's always going to be tricky, because those guys, you know, tend to, you know, be tricky customers for orthodox fighters. It's just the history dictates that, you know what I mean? But looking past that, obviously a little bit into the future, just as a fan, not as in, you know, being my bro, being in that corner, being as a fan. If you want to dream of a mega fight, that's a great fight. But I mean, Fury is a hell of a fighter, man. I mean, the UK is going to be, what's the word I'm looking for? It's going to be a crazy scene over if that goes to somewhere like Wembley, you know? All the boxing fans coming out, the Irish fans coming out, you know what I mean? I think it's going to be a great old shindig. But listen, let's not look past that. But I mean, hard. It's just too all the either way. Dillian deserves his shots. Many, many, many a thousand of days have passed. We understand there was an upset with Povetkin where, you know, he took his eyes off the prize and then he lost and then he gained redemption coming back. Now we've got Otto Wallin southpaw, decent, long, rangy, knows how to move, moves his head, knows how to use his jab. But we're going to see that this Dillian's the can man for a reason. He takes on all customers and he does his thing. Hopefully, either way, we'll accept a win. But if the win comes by a knockout, that'd be great, because then it obviously shows a little bit more about him also. You know what I mean? But to take away that southpaw side, obviously Dill's got to probably close the distance and get on top of him and just get busy. But we know Otto Wallin can fight dirty, in close, using his head, using his thumb. Like when he Tyson Fury was cut, he was using his thumb in there. So I'm sure we're in for an intriguing fight. And obviously, I believe Dillian will win. Excuse me. And then we got to move on to what's next. You know what I mean? But we can't overlook that. But I mean, listen, let Tyson Fury have his moment, man. At the end of the day, this was one of the best fights, heavyweight fights that I've seen, you know, for some time. I mean, both guys were seriously banging. And we're talking, these are like the gladiators of the division. We're not talking about anyone under 6'4", 6'3", or whatever. These guys are like 6'7", 6'9", 6'10", punching 7 bells out of each other. And, you know, just doing their stuff. So credit to them. Let Deontay Wilder go back, recoup. I think hopefully he, you know, I heard Tyson Fury saying he might not be back. I hope that's not the case, because there's great fights for him. Anthony Joshua, Andy Ruiz, Dillian, Helenius, Karanaki. Even though in his loss, he's still in the peripheral. All those boys, Joe Joyce. There's loads of little guys. Ortiz is still there for some guys if you want to have a fight that's quite dangerous. But I mean, there's so much fights in the heavyweight. Even Derek Chisora mingling in with some of these boys, you know. There's big fights. I'd like to see Derek Chisora versus Wilder, Dillian versus Wilder. So there's so many fights to make. So let's see what happens. But ultimately, let those guys go and rest up, recoup. Anthony Joshua, obviously, versus Deontay Wilder is another good fight. But he's got his own work to do. He's got to go and now make amends. He's got that unification fight there to go and do. And like you said, Eddie said, you know, they're signed up for that. So that's definitely, there's big money on the line. There's no way he's going to let that slip through his hands anyway. And then we'll look at the landscape. But those guys deserve a solid rest for what they put on the line in Las Vegas Saturday night.
Dean, I must ask you, and I'll end on this. Tyson Fury was asked during the press conference, like, what's next? And he said himself, just like you said, listen, I'm going to go rest, recover, and spend time with my family. I've been in camp on and off for over 18 months or so. The question for you is, and we don't know how this is going to go and how this can play. We know politics in boxing is quite frequent, but would Dillian be disappointed if Fury was to either vacate or be elevated to franchise champion? Or would Dill still be like, well, as long as I get my WBC shot with whoever, because I deserve that, would he still take that rather than say, I know he'll fight Fury, but would he still take fighting the belt with number 2 ranked contender?
Yeah, of course, Dillian. Listen, Dillian's a madman. Dillian, look, Dillian's going to be happy either way. But obviously, if he's not fighting Tyson Fury, he's not going to be best pleased. And he's very vocal character, as I'm sure you've seen over the years. So he'll have something to say. If they do move him to franchise, I understand. Yeah, if you're a fan of boxing, you want to see these mega fights. You want to see, you know, these kind of Dillian Whyte. He's put it all on the line for many years. He deserves his shot at fighting the best of the best, to see, you know, if he is at that level that he can dethrone the Gypsy King. He's got to go out there and give it his opportunity, get his world title fight, and then for him to say, him going up to, you know, being elevated to super champion and then him fighting someone else. I'm not sure how that's going to go down for him and some of Dillian's boxing fans, you know what I mean? But we got to look at it. We'll have to see, because I'm sure, like, Tyson Fury thinks, well, look, I've done my job in boxing. I've faced all the best guys that were available at the time. Maybe I deserve a chance to pick and choose who I want to fight, take my time out and do my thing. There is a possibility that could be the case. And that's actually quite a valid question. So let's see what happens. Only time, like you said, there's a lot of politics in boxing, and we'll have to see. You know what I mean?
Dean Whyte, IFL TV, thank you very much.
Thanks very much, pal.